Hello, welcome to a miniature painting tutorial. Today I would like to show you guys how I assemble, put together, and paint miniatures, mainly focusing on painting the miniatures. I do a range from Warhammer 40k all the way to bones, the bones from D&D miniatures, that sort of thing. I also do a lot of customizing bases as well as throwing on extra parts or in just using random materials I have around the house just to save on cost as well. Now, what I want to show today is how I paint Chaos Space Marine Terminators, which are these guys right here. And I've already assembled them, put bases on them, as well as prime the models. It's always good to start using a primer right away. That's always the first step. That holds the paint secure as well as make the paint go smoothly across. Now for the bases, I've used just regular corkboard. This guy right here. It comes in sheets this size, and it's really easy to tear, really easy to manipulate. This makes really good for rocks as well as concrete, parts of roads or buildings, that sort of thing. Now moving on from there, I've decided to go with a certain style of Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines in particular. They're called the Alpha Legion. What I like about these in particular is that they have a really nice, really easy, and cool color scheme. First of all, they're basically all blue as well as with a green highlight and gold kind of trim. What makes them really unique though are the fact that they have scales all across their armor. And I don't know if you can quite see that, but let's see if I can. Scales kind of like along the armor there. Really interesting, really cool. And yeah, I kind of just wanted to show exactly how I paint and put these models together. So what I'll do here first, start off with the base coat. Now, with starting off with the base coat, I like to start with whatever color is going to be primarily going to be defined in the model itself. So for this one, I'm going to be using a Cantor Blue from the Citadel Workshop or Games Workshop. And before you start using any of your paints, always make sure to give it a good shake before you start using it. Now, what I do is I take a medium-sized brush, especially since with the base coat, you don't need to necessarily be clean and crisp about all of it. Any mistake or any overlapping, you're going to go back over later with a finer detail. So, give it a good shake, and then what I like to do is have a palette. Now, I don't actually have a legitimate palette. I have a CD case, an old CD case that I don't use anymore. So this works great, especially for just getting it on there and kind of getting a nice control and even layer that you want. So what I do is then add a bit of water to it just to kind of get the consistency that I want. If it doesn't all go through right away, or if you can still see some of the gray underneath the blue, that's okay, because later on you can just add a second coat, and it's always easier to add multiple coats than it is just to do one coat and then try to go back up. That just helps your paint from clumping up or getting kind of a cake style. But yeah, just adding a bit of water, and then just have enough on the tip just to get enough in there. And what I like to do start off with is just going through and getting all of the areas that the model is going to be blue. And I usually like to use this darker blue for this one in particular. And I just go through, and like I said, don't worry about being too entirely neat about it, because when you go back through later on, it'll be easier to cover it up. After applying all of the blue that you want, or whatever base color that you want, that's going to be most visible throughout the model, then you want to go to what's called the trim. Now for this trim, I like to make it a kind of a gold trim, but I wanted a dark gold, so I'm using this uh, Balthazar gold. It's really dark, kind of almost bronze-like. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go across uh, all of the areas where kind of the armor protrudes away from the actual armor. So what I'll do here is I'll use a medium size brush, and what I like to do, instead of mixing, usually with metallic colors, I don't like to mix water with it. It kind of dilutes it too much. So I give this a good shake, and then what I use is called a lanthanum medium. Now you can use pretty much any medium, but this pretty much makes it hold together a little bit better, and doesn't really take away from the technical uh, parts or the metallic parts of it. And what I do first here is I don't want to mix the the colors too much, so I'll just add a little bit of the medium into the palette, probably 3 or 4 drops, maybe 5 or 6, a little bit more. So that way you have a nice puddle, and then once you have that there, then you can start adding the Balthazar gold to that. Get a nice, good consistency that you want. Once again, it's easier to go back over than to add too much. So I always like to start off using just a little bit. And then when I'm ready to apply it, what I do is I dip the brush in, and I only want just the tip of it. I don't want the whole brush, because this one you don't want to spill over. This one you want to keep nice and clean and trim, kind of around the edges. So what I'll do is I'll kind of give the brush a spin as I'm coming off the palette. And then what I do is then I find the trim, so like right around this armor up here, right up here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go real slow, real light around the edges. Make sure you have a good grip on it, and start painting the gold trim around. Alright, for the next part, I'm going to be going over all of the parts of his armor, which is silver. Like the gun, as well as the tips of these spikes up here, his power fist, as well as kind of the in-between parts where kind of his armor is like held together. Some of the vents in the back as well are also going to be silver. And I'm going to be using another base coat. Pretty much everything I've done so far is with base coats. That's as soon as you always want to do a layer of base coats before you start doing any of the highlights or washes. That just really helps kind of put the paint on the model, as well as helps it stick. And then you want to use the layers as well as a little bit of touch up with the base coats. I've also removed the model from the base. I basically, what I've done here is just cut apart, what are they called, paper clips, and then I've just removed it from the base, and I just stick it back on with some glue. But it just makes it easier to do the base as well as the model. I had it on for a while, but I think it's just easier to use. Just hold the model. Just try not to hold on to it too tightly, because you can wear off the paint just by, especially if you just put on a fresh coat. It's easier to wear off some of the paint to do that. So what I'm going to do here first is just get just a little bit just on the tip, just like the gold. And this one you want to be really careful. I wasn't too particularly careful with the gold, just because I am going to be going over. But same with the silver, you still don't want to completely have to go over stuff that you've already done. So let's see here. So what I do is I start in these back vents of his legs, just right in here. All right, so after completing all of the silver parts, and you have the majority of the base done, there's only a few gray parts still left in the model itself, but that's okay. We'll add those later. But for right now, what we're gonna do is add a wash to it. Now, I like to use kind of like a dark inky color. This is called Nuln Oil. It's shade, and basically what you want to do with this guy is you want to get a brush that has, you know, a tip that's not, it's kind of frayed, not necessarily a fine tip. And what you want to do is then go through and lightly wash the whole model. And what you're looking to do is actually get all of this dark Nuln Oil or your wash into the recesses. And what this does, it really makes all of the recesses and shadows kind of really stand out in the model. And so what I'm going to do is just go through the whole model and completely shade it. All right, so after adding all of the Nuln Oil shade, you can tell that there's all of the little darker areas now have been really shaded, and it really helps the detail kind of pop out within the model, especially one of this size. You know, it really helps to have a really nice kind of dark shade. And I want this model to be on the darker side as well. I don't want it to be super bright. And I've also added brown, green, and red, as well as white, to the skulls, and those are all base coats that I'm gonna re-go over. So next, after that, after the shade, now you want to start doing the highlights. I like to start with the gold highlights, just because it's easier to touch up the bigger areas than it is the smaller ones. So going over the smaller ones first. So what I want to do with this one is add a much lighter gold. Now this is just a highlight. This isn't, you don't want to completely cover the whole model. All of the armor part, all the complete armor trim with this gold. So this is a new one. So always make sure you give it a good shake. And since it is a layer, you don't want to add any medium to this, water or the lanthanum medium or anything like that. It's going to go on really smooth and really easy without that. All right, and this one, definitely want to use a small fine tip detail brush and just add some of that to the palette, so that would help control how much you have on the brush, and to evenly spread it over the model. So now that I have, you know, just the very tip of it, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's not very much on the brush itself. So basically what you want to do with this is just lightly go over the edges of the detail armor, still leaving all of the recesses dark and not completely covering the whole thing. This is just to brighten it up and really make it shine. So I'm going to go through that, do the whole model in this nice and kind of very, very light gold, this bright gold. Okay, so I've completely covered the bronze-ish gold now with a lighter layer of gold, and kind of really brought out, it makes it more shiny now, but I still left quite a bit of the bronze showing. It kind of gives it a good contrast now between the light gold and then the darker gold. So and that's kind of the look I was going for. I've also based the rock in black. It's still a little bit wet, as you can see, but that's what I did. I just covered the whole thing in a black paint. And so then the next step, what I'm going to do is go through with a much lighter blue. This is now going to be the blue highlight of the armor, and what this will do is make it a lot lighter, and give it a kind of a cooler contrast to the darker gold. So with this, give it a good shake, And also definitely use a detail brush with this, and add a little bit on the palette to help control the flow and how much paint you're using as well. Definitely have, yeah, just about that much. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be going over the just the edge of the armor. Okay, I'm not going to be going over. I'm not going to be going into the details. I'm not going to be covering the whole thing. And this is just to, like I said, just to brighten it up, and also just to clean up any of the mess that I've had from the leftover gold, and also try to keep your brush strokes kind of level and going the same direction, so that way, especially with these lighter paints, sometimes they can tend to pool up and to kind of cake in a weird way, and it makes it less. It makes it look like more kind of fake and not kind of what you're looking for. So after I've completely highlighted all the blue areas with the lighter blue, you can see now it kind of uh, has like a little bit of a brighter aspect to it, and it's a little bit more crisp. And what I did was I left a lot of the edges, especially here on the side, darker. That way, it gives it a nice kind of shadow depth to the actual piece. So the next step that I have is I'm going to be adding a warpstone. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, warpstone glow. And basically, what I'm going to be doing is just finding all the corners of the model, and I'm just going to be lightly going across that, and just kind of give it green all around the whole model. And the effect of that is that's kind of the color scheme of the uh, Alpha Legion, which these guys kind of go to. And so that's the next step that I've got. And then also with this, I'm going to be painting the kind of the first stages of the scales, because what you want to do with the scales is you want to go from a gradual dark green to a light green. So I'll kind of go over a little bit of what I'm going to be doing with this. Also going to be adding a little bit to the palette, help control how much, because this I don't want very much. I want very little. I only want just like the corners and the edges basically of the model with this guy. So right here, it's kind of this edge, and I'm just going to be using the side of my brush. I'm not going to be using the tip, and that way you're actually just catching the corners and kind of the raised edges of the model itself. And you want to go really lightly and really slow, so that way you don't end up adding too much. And this part, definitely take your time. Try to get all those nice corners and ridges that are standing up within the model. So after I've gone through and done all that, then what I'm going to be doing is doing the scales. And with this, this definitely take your time, be really, really, really careful and slow. And what I do is just go real slow and just make kind of like a little whip motion around it, and that really helps define the areas you're going to be tracing over later with a light green. And so basically what I'll be doing is just starting at one top corner and then going around the model. And you can't really see it on the camera, but on here, but you'll be able to tell the detail yourself. And honestly, you don't want this to be super light, because like I said, you'll be going back over all the scales with a lighter green later on. Okay, so now I've completely gone over the edges and the corners, and just a bit of his face as well, with the green, just like a kind of a light green. Kind of gives it like a almost like an aqua aspect about it. Now what I'm going to be doing is going over all of the bones, which are now currently white, with it's called Ushabti bone, and it really kind of darkens it up and gives it more of that bone richness that I'm going to be then washing in a earth shade. This one's called Agrax Earth Shade, and then that will definitely pool up in the recesses. And then I'll go back through and highlight it with this guy, which is Screaming Skull. This is just a lighter version of the Ushabti bone, which makes all of the detail kind of pop out. And then what I'm going to do is then go over all of the darker green scales with a light green, and I'll show you what that turns out. When I go through that process. So this is what this guy looks like right now. All right, so I've pretty much gone through and added all of the light green. The scales definitely are popping out a little bit more. As you can see, I added them to the shoulder, one leg, as well as the hand. I think this just really, I just love that the scales part of this model anyway. And I've also gone through and highlighted all of the bone as well as washed it in the Earthshade. For the most part, this guy is done. I also I also painted his eyes kind of like a dark red. I might be adding a little bit of pink in the middle just to make it kind of have a glow effect to it. But yeah, I think for the most part, he's pretty much done. Now, this guy's done. The next step is to finish off the base. So this is pretty much well dried. It's still a little bit wet, but I think that's okay. Because the next kind of technique and part that I want to show you that really helps with kind of these rocky bases is what I call, or what is called dry brushing. And so what you want to do is get a dry brush. It is pretty easy to find. But basically, this is the tip. It's supposed to be kind of frayed, and also make sure it's definitely very, very dry when you do this. And what I'm going to do is add a gray to it, a dark gray to start out with. And I'm going to use this guy right here. This is Dawnstone. It's a very, very dark, kind of earthy gray. And I'll show you exactly how I do dry brushing. So what I do is I just get a little bit on the tip there, and then I take a bit and just work it into the tissue. And so what this does, this gets all the bristles completely covered. And then I just keep dabbing it until I get a really dark kind of consistency to it. And you don't want to completely cover it, because what you're going to be doing with this is you're going to be lightly going over it in kind of like a back and forth motion. And I'll show you how I do this. So, and what this does is it really catches kind of the edges and the cracks, but leaves the underneath that dark black, and kind of leaves all the cracks and stuff of the rock. And it also makes it look fairly real. And so I just go through this, and as you can tell, it's really catching the light on this. And we'll go over and do all of this here. Okay, so now I've pretty much got all of the rocks dry brushed to this dark gray. And as you can tell, all the black and dark details are still within the corkboard. But now what I want to do is add one more dry brush to it, and this one is going to be another kind of. This one's called Uthuln Gray, and what this one does, it's much lighter gray. And this will really, I only want to do just a little bit of it, not too much, and I just want to go all around kind of where the light would hit it. So I'm going to leave, as you can see where the rock's kind of cracked, I'm going to leave that the way it is, but I'm just going to kind of go just around the edge of it. So yeah, this, as you can tell, this is almost white. That's how gray it is. And I'm only going to get just a little bit just there on the tip, and then just really work into the brush using some kind of tissue paper or like a napkin or something. And that's kind of what you want the brush to look like. If it'll focus, come on. Well, you'll see what I'm talking about. So, like I said, just around the edges. Just gonna lightly go over it, and you don't need very much, because when you add too much, then it'll really it won't look right and it'll look fakey. And so, yeah, just want to go just around the edges, real slow. Alright, so for the most part, as you can tell, I've just gone around the edges, just where the light would hit the rocks, kind of make them really jump out. And I left the darker kind of back behind him, less so. And I didn't want to really put the gray in there. And then I just reattached him, put a little bit of glue on him, and stick him in there just like that. And as you can tell, he's pretty much done. The only thing I can think of that I would add, maybe just a few more highlights around the edge, and I'll probably add a little bit of white. He has a couple jewels kind of below, and I kind of want to differentiate those from his eyes and kind of give it a little bit more diversity, color diversity in there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. As far as what I do to make these, what I do to models in general, and like I said, I use pretty much all of these techniques across the board with any kind of miniature that I do. Definitely one of my favorite pastimes, just working on these guys. So yep, definitely, if you guys have any questions or comments or something I should change or do differently, definitely let me know.